And when it's us looking at our own stuff, we're like, well,
justification.
This has to stay here. I don't know who I am without this. Or I'm not ready to give this up yet. Or I will give this up soon enough. Like I can stop whenever I want. Or that's not even junk. It's not even bad for me. Which is back to the accountability piece. Like it's not just Jesus. Because the way he set it up is God and community. You need both.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Welcome back to Lessons and Blessings. You know who you know who's here, okay?
Unless you don't.
Unless you don't, then we're gonna introduce y'all. Hi, this is Sheldon Hawthorne, and I'm sitting across from the table with my lovely co-host. His name is
AJ Tabor.
Yes.
I'm not going to put on my customer service voice like Sheldon just did.
Code switch. Come on.
Nah, back when I worked at McDonald's. Really. Hey, my name is AJ Tabor. Nice to meet you.
That's too nice for McDonald's. That's
what I'm saying. But they'd come through the drive-thru and they would say, man, you got that Chick-fil-A service.
They would say that.
Thank you. And then they'd be like, hey, can I give you a tip? And I was like, legally, I'm not allowed to take them. That's what happens.
But I'm not gonna stop you. I can't force you not to do nothing.
Yeah. I mean, if you
threaten me, you better take this tip or else.
So crazy. There's no way. You have to leave it in. You have to leave it in.
Oh my gosh.
You have to leave it in. That was the biggest pop off I have ever heard from Sheldon. He literally got caught. He got caught lacking, dude. That's crazy behavior.
That's the episode, y'all.
Hey,
it's
welcome
only
back,
a
man.
minute and 15.
Welcome back. If you can tell already, we're filming a little bit later than we normally do.
Oh my gosh.
And the energies are a little bit different. And that is the craziest thing. We have you on any sort of film ever. It's so nuts.
That's the biggest.
Get him canceled.
Look, as soon as I said, I was like, yeah.
This is one of those moments we need a video.
For real.
Your eyes got so wide. Oh, I'm crying. I'm actually crying. Well, it's great to be back. Where are we at now? We're about a week and some change into April. Maybe coming up on a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy. Solar eclipse just happened.
Not so solar in Houston, huh?
Oh, it happened. It just
It did get a little cold. I was outside.
wasn't for us. You know? Wasn't for us. And so I think the first thing that we should address is why Jesus didn't come back at the solar eclipse. You know?
I think it's pretty rude.
Oh, you think he's late or something?
Bro, why you leaving me hanging, bro?
What are you talking about?
You should have came back. This earth is ghetto, bro. I'm tired of it.
No.
It's ghetto out here, man.
Yeah.
It's grimy.
That's how I feel on Mondays.
I actually like Mondays.
Really? Why?
Sets the tone for the week.
It's what?
Sets the tone for the week.
Sets the tone. Oh, yeah. Okay. What's the worst day of the week?
For whatever reason, it's Wednesday or Thursday.
Wednesday, Thursday? It's Thursday because it's not Friday?
I don't know. Thursday energy, I've never been like, I love Thursdays.
Don't you help with the church on Wednesdays?
But at the end of the
All right,
day.
and moving
That's at the
on.
end.
2 for 2, 2 for 2. We got him, boys.
No!
This is going to be the
I'm getting
Cancel
caught
Sheldon
slipping.
episode.
Actually, this is a big thing, though.
Go ahead.
This is episode number 20.
Really?
Yeah.
That is big.
Number 20, the big 2-0.
Dang. Wow.
For those who don't know, we really had a meeting in the beginning, the end of last year.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, this is our goal, and we're going to do it. We're like, okay. But we know if we don't actually start or stay committed to it,
Yeah.
this ain't going to happen.
It's not happening.
Because what was our goal? To get total episodes together, I think we're trying to we're doing 2 per month, 24 episodes.
Right.
By the end of the year.
Yeah.
And so
Every other week.
we're on pace.
We are on
We stay
pace.
faithful to the record on every other Friday, drop that following Wednesday,
Yep.
and rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. One of my homies, he asked me, he was like, man, how are you feeling about the pod? Like, what are you getting excited about, or what topics are you dying to dive into? And I was like, honestly, man, it's not that I'm not excited, but I think I'm we're in the place of, okay, this is the mundane piece of it. Like, this is the faithfulness piece.
Right.
It's not all glamorous. It was great when we first thought, like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
we're doing a
everybody's so
podcast.
excited.
People were like, whoa, I thank you for the episode, bro. We still get that. Like, please let us know how the episode has impacted you and all this different stuff. Like, we would love to hear that stuff as well. But like, this is the faithful piece of, okay, this is what consistency looks like. And I was telling him, this is one of the few things in my life that's actually consistent.
Right.
And the reason being because it's not just me.
Yeah.
I have somebody else to be held accountable to. And I think that's where we should stick.
No, it's a great point. I was already thinking that, like, just in the conversation of, in a lot of ways, this was a New Year's resolution for us because we were setting it up kind of in the new year, what it was going to look like. And obviously, I think that we're kind of at a time in the year where a lot of people maybe have given up on those kinds of things. And it's like, AJ, we don't talk about New Year's in April. Okay, we let everybody try for a couple of weeks and then we all move on and act like it didn't happen. But I mean, there is so much power in, it's a cliche, right? But like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with somebody else. And the idea is that, like, even on days that both you and I are like, man, I don't got it today. Just knowing that I would have to vocalize, like, I know both of us have had to show up to do this and be faithful to what God has asked us to do, even when maybe we don't have the schedule that aligns with it, or we don't have the energy, or maybe we had a tough week, or all those kinds of things, like, because that's life.
Right.
But to know that, yeah, but I'm not going to tell Sheldon. Like, I'm not going to call my boy and tell him, I just don't feel like it tonight.
Because if you do that, I'm like, bet.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be like, nah, but listen, I'm
We
like,
can't even open the door.
I'm like, oh, cool.
Yep.
Because I will flake immediately. I know.
No hesitation.
No hesitation. I'm like, bet. I get more time to do anything else. Say less.
Anything else.
Say less. This is easy. That's
Yeah.
the easiest yes.
Yeah.
For real. And so I think that's a beautiful thing about accountability, though.
Yeah.
Because true accountability, like, even I remember, like, maybe 3 or 4 episodes ago, we were sitting here, we ate, we were just talking about life off mic. And we looked at each other. We were like, "You don't want to do this." I was like, "Nah." and we considered it. We considered it literally sitting on the couch and, like, watching, like, Minecraft or something.
Yeah.
And just chill. We was like, "We're already here. Let's just go ahead and knock it out."
Yeah.
And we're so glad we did, because it's such a euphemism for just any other thing that we want to be consistent in. Like, prime example, right? Oh, I want to go to the gym. Going to the gym is fun. Maybe the first week or 2 you go. But you get that first, like you said, when life hits or you just don't feel like going.
Yeah.
The second you give into that, it's going to make it much harder for you to hop back on that horse.
That's right.
And so, not saying that we're all perfect, but if you do fall off, get right back on as fast as you possibly can, because that's going to prevent you from just going right back to what you're doing before. And I know for a fact that it's almost, this podcast is really truly becoming bigger than us. Like, not in the sense of, like, you know, reaching people and stardom and big Instagram account and brand deals, all that's not what I'm talking about. But if God has called us to this, there must be a bigger purpose in it. So therefore, we should be faithful, because we can get to see and partner with God to see what He wants to do through this.
Right.
By Himself strengthening us to be faithful to what He's already told us to do. So He's like, hey, I'm betting on myself, because, like, I live in you. And so if I live in you, I can strengthen you. And then I'm strengthening you. You already got the capability to do it. And once you do it, I can bless it. It's like it's a win-win situation regardless, you know? And so it's interesting, man.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, like, a lot of those things that we talk about, especially in Christendom, about, like, you know, being such a big deal and important, like consistency or obedience and discipline, all those kinds of things, like, those will be thrown around a lot and everybody will amen it. But none of it counts until you have to do it when you don't want to, right? Like, even the gym, like, the days that really count are when you go when you didn't want to, because you're literally showing yourself, hey, when I don't feel like it, we will still do it. And I think that some of becoming an adult and 26 years old is realizing kind of the ways that I've allowed myself to slack for years, because my body is used to getting what it wants.
Talk about it.
Which is why, like, we compartmentalize a little bit, especially in Christianity, the certain ways that we do it, and we don't like to touch some of the other ways in America. But, like, typically, if you aren't able to rein in your desire in one area, you're not that likely to do it in the other areas either, right? And so sometimes I think we come as a church pretty hard, or just as a religion, pretty hard about like pornography and premarital sex and all that kind of stuff, especially in America. But it's like, fam, I haven't seen you say no to a cheeseburger, so how are you going to say no to watching porn? Like, you don't need all of that.
Right.
And, obviously we're not getting here on a topic of like nutrition and like, that's not what we're trying to talk about, but it's like my body knows or has been trained in a lot of ways that when I crave something, I give into it. And so it's like, yeah, well, when I become disciplined in one area, it makes me want to do that as well. I've noticed whenever my struggle and temptation with pornography was at the worst, I also didn't get a lot of sleep. I also didn't eat well. I also didn't go to the gym. Like, it's not just one thing, but I think it's a crazy thing to first be humble enough to admit, hey, on my own, I'd mess this podcast up. Like, I wouldn't be committed. Because I had for about a year some equipment sitting back there that I was like, I feel like God wants me to do this. And I didn't do anything with it.
Right.
But I think that's the encouragement. But the invitation is you have to humble yourself.
Bingo.
To allow other people to come do it with you. And you have to be willing to admit to yourself, hey, my track record with this isn't great. And one day it can be, right? Like, you talk to people who really be working out like that. And it's like, oh no, I love it now. Like, I crave it now. My body knows. Right. I'm no longer, my body doesn't think there's a way out anymore. So it just embraces it. Right. And I think in a lot of ways in our faith still, we're kind of like, we say we want to be used. We say we want to follow the Lord, but our body has been trained that like he'll quit in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Because on that note, I remember I'm only going to use the topic of pornography because I've used this analogy a bunch of times, right? I want to say what I'm about to say. I'm not saying that God can't free anybody from any addiction or anything at a snap of a finger. Because He's more powerful to do that. But for 99% of the people who have any type of sin struggle, it's going to take work. It's going to take you putting your foot to the ground and then partner with Him to do what He wants you to do so you can get to that freedom, right?
Yeah.
And so I always say like this: if I spent half my life bound to this thing, why would I expect myself to be free from it in a day?
Right.
Right? Yes, I believe God can do immeasurably more than what I can think or imagine. I mean, I've seen Him doing it in my own life. I read about it. I've heard stories about people, crazy God stories. But these things like this, He's like, hey, I want you to understand what it looks like to really rely on me. And so I'm going to have you walk through this. And a lot of times, like, God, but I'm a Christian. God, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be struggling with this. God, I should already been free from this. And just like, I keep getting humbled by 1 Peter 4:12. Don't think it's anything crazy is happening to you. Don't be surprised.
Yeah, it's not strange.
It's like, it's not strange. I promised you this like eight books before. I promised this. I told you you're going to have trials. Yeah. I told you you're going to have tribulations.
Yeah.
And it's not if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah. It's funny because you know how we do.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like, especially in accountability, hey, I did a dumb thing again and I was caught off guard. And there's a moment, I know for myself, where I looked back on all of those times, and especially I think when we started really kind of growing together as friends and all that kind of stuff, where you would hit me back with a kind of like, yeah, but you knew that was going to happen. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, it just like temptation just came and it, it got me, it like pounced on me. And then you say it enough times and you realize what you're saying is like, oh, why? Yeah. Why do I think that? Why do I suddenly feel like just because I'm tempted, it's like this overpowering and like, oh, it's strange. And I feel like I was having a great day and all of a sudden there's Satan. And it's like, yeah, that's the deal, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
he waits like a roaring lion to see who he can pounce on. He's methodical and he's going to wait for you the second you lower your guard. That's like, I got him.
Yep.
But there is so much scripture that to counter that, like, an insane amount of scripture to counter that. And it's one of those things where it's like, even this morning, I had to confess to you about some stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, I spelled it out. Hey, this is what happened. This is why I did it. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh, I just happened to do this.
Yeah,
no, like, hey, this is what happened. It was stupid.
my Instagram feed.
Like I was
Shut up.
like, bro, you had all the opportunities to walk away,
Yeah, sure.
and you stayed there, right? And it's so like when it comes to that accountability piece, not only is it up to the person to really truly be vulnerable and transparent with why you did something more than the what, because you can say what you did all the time, but if you don't get to the why, you're
That's
never gonna get to what the actual problem is.
That's right.
And if you don't tell the other person why, like they're just not saying that their prayers aren't gonna work when they pray for you, but maybe they have insight for you specifically for that why, because everybody's why can be different.
Yeah,
right?
it's
Like, good to go back to pornography. The reason why you go to it because you might have low self-esteem, or you had trauma from childhood, or you have just poor relationships with people, or whatever. It can be a host of things. And guess what? The second you say, man, I think it's this and this and this, somebody, you know what's crazy? I'll go through all those exact same things, just how God helped me, and I believe He'll help you too. But if you never get to that vulnerability piece, that takes trust and courage on both ends. Like accountability is not just, hey, I'm checking in on you, bro. Like, how you doing? Or hey, I'm just letting you know that here's my day 7 and I'm still good, right? Accountability should be awkward for both people. 'Cause I ain't gonna lie to you.
That's a bar.
Like for me, it's easy to confess to God when I've sinned.
Yeah. He already knows.
God, you already knew.
He knows.
You already know. Like, oh, I already know I'm forgiven. I'm loved, and all this stuff. It's like, man,
God,
I do not want to have to
it's
tell
me
my
again.
boys.
Yeah, of course.
I do not want to tell. I don't want to disappoint them.
Right.
Air quotes, big air quotes, disappoint them.
Yeah.
Right. And I was this close to like slipping through the day without like something that's in my mind. I was like, nah, I gotta tell them. I was like, all right, God, I'm gonna tell them. I gotta tell them. Right. And when you do that, not only does that whatever happened like lose power, but it also shows you that you can trust people, not only with your faults, but also with your heart, and where it is, and the tenderness of that moment and stuff like that. But that comes upon accountability. It's like, hey, bro, I love you, but we gotta kill that.
Yeah, what are we doing?
Like, what's next?
Right.
Like, this is the third time the exact same thing. What are we about to do? Because I'm not about to sit here and let you just stay in this place and self-loathe and all these different things. Like, no, like, let's go. Let's put on our spiritual armor. Yeah. Let's pick up the sword and let's start attacking, because the enemy don't fight fair. So let's not fight fair.
Yeah, it's good.
Let's fight dirty. Like, truly, if you really think about it, this is not a fair fight.
No, of course not.
It never has been. But the enemy has so convinced us that it's not a fair fight, that it is a fair fight. And so he kind of put himself as equal between God and himself.
Right.
And so now we're like, that's what's enemy got me. He pulled a fast one on me.
Yeah.
And the crazy part is he does the same thing every single time. Like, enemy's so smart, but we're just
Broken
so dumb,
record,
bro. We're so dumb. That's why Jesus called us sheep. Anyway. It's just the Spirit of God lives in us. Right. The Spirit that indwelt Jesus after he died, paraded in Sheol about his victories. I just get this mention like a ha 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 ha. You thought you had me, ha 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 ha. Just wait, ha 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 ha. I'm back.
I'm back.
Like was it Emperor's New Boom, baby?
Yep.
He defeated death. He defeated the greatest power against us.
It's a wrap.
But that power lives in us.
Yeah.
And we think the enemy can. We know where the enemy's story ends. We know where it ends. If you truly believe these words, you know where it ends. Yeah. Second to know where it ends, guess what? It starts to lose its power. Jesus didn't die just to kill the temptation, but he killed the source. Right? Not saying that we won't be tempted, because we're flesh, we live in a broken world, we're always going to be tempted. Yeah. But the source loses its power, so it doesn't have any grip on us unless we allow it to keep having grip on us. Not saying that there's obvious things that we all need to work through, whether that be trauma, pain, strongholds that we need to unlearn, things that we need to be revealed through. Therapy is a big one, and learning about your emotions and all those things are very important. I'm not saying skip all that. I'm not trying to tell you to spiritually bypass any of that stuff, right? Because that's very toxic in itself. Yeah. But it loses its power. So once the second it loses its power, then you can walk in that confidence with God. Like, hey, I'm walking with a big dog. I ain't worried about what they barking at over there. Yeah. How many of them is it? 20? There's one God. I dare you.
Man, what's that? That Old Testament. There's a story. They're going to war, and I can't remember who it is off the top of my head, but the soldiers are like freaking out a little bit, and a prophet or the leader, whoever it was, prays.
And it also opens their eyes to see the angels.
God, let them see that there are, like, open their eyes and let them see that there are more with us than are with them or whatever. And they open their eyes and they see like all of these beings just like, it's on sight. Like,
Yeah.
they're like,
ready.
yeah, okay, yeah, let's go. And it is hilarious because I think ultimately, one of the traps we get stuck into is just overcomplicating things, right? Like you said, the enemy has like one playbook. Like, he's not reinventing the wheel and he's not coming with new things. All Satan can do is take what is already there and twist it. He's not creative. Like, he can't come up with new concepts, okay? Because that's God. That's who he is. And so I think that we look at these areas and we like, yeah, man, I can trust God in my finances, but maybe not my family. Or I can trust God in my job, but maybe I can't trust him with my heart, or, you know, all those kind of things. And it's like, no, honestly, it's the same thing in every area. And like, I think some of what we talk about the most, and like I said, is like usually pornography. And usually what that looks like is like, you're saying, what's the why? And there's always a part of addiction or sin or anything that you feel shame about letting it get to a certain point, right? So when you think about, I mean, I'll just go for them right now. Like, when you think about hoarding, a lot of it is, I'm ashamed that I allowed it to get like this, so I can't let anybody in to help because they'll see it.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing with addiction, right? Same thing with, obviously we said, yeah, drugs, alcoholism, that kind of stuff, where you let it get to a point where it's just a shame complex at some point. But the beauty is that when you figure it out in one area, man, why not just apply that same thing, right?
Yeah,
every area of my life is, am I going to trust God with this or not? And then when in areas where I pick things back up and I'm like, yeah, but I really need to do this, or I need to make sure this happens. And then once again, I'm reminded, oh, nope, only God can do that. And so it's about, I think, being freed from shame, so that we can be honest and let people actually in to get the help that we need. Right. I mean, it is, I think, one of those things. I don't think I've ever had like clinical depression, you know, but everybody gets depressive episodes. Everybody has funks, and everybody sometimes has them for that lasts a little bit longer. And I remember there being a point where my personal hygiene just wasn't really that great, you know, like. And I just like, even in the moment, I was like, whatever, like, I'll just do it tomorrow. Like, and maybe it was a couple days going longer without showering or just not brushing my teeth very much. And like, obviously everybody doesn't like to have like smelly breath and things like that. Right. But in the moment, sometimes you're like, man, it's just tough, you know? And I get it. Like, I empathize with people that really struggle to take care of themselves and to do those kinds of things. And I remember one of the moments that something happened and changed was like, I remember feeling like, oh, dude, I feel like I can feel my teeth or my gums like starting to recede even a little bit. There's like almost like a little metallic taste and something. And I had that moment where I was like, dude,
snap out of it.
Come on, what are we doing? What are we doing? But I think the reason I share any of that is not because like, bro, my teeth are fine, right? Like, they're great. But when it comes down to it, the trap is like, you won't know it's that bad until it gets there. But if I, in that moment, take that similar feeling of shame and I bottle up and I'm like, I'm like, let's say that something does go wrong. Let's say I lose a tooth in that situation instead because I just haven't been disciplined to take care of myself, which guess what? Like, that happens. I'm like, I think that we look at it like, maybe it's as a dream. Like, one of my most hated part of any dream is whenever I feel like my adult teeth wiggling, like they're loose, is because I'm like, that's embarrassing. Like, that's people are going to know I didn't take care of myself. But just imagine that situation now, and you do lose a tooth, and instead of being proactive from that moment on and saying, I'm going to go see a dentist, I'm going to make sure the rest of them are taken care of, and if something's happening, we're going to keep the rest of them. Sometimes we get in our own head so much that we start doing like, well, yeah, but it would be embarrassing for me to go to somebody who's a professional at that and have to admit I didn't handle my business. And so what do we do when we're ashamed of not handling our business? We give ourselves an out to not handle our business. And it's like, no, dude, if you are so caught up in shame, and shame keeps you from discipline, shame will then keep you from the help you need.
Facts.
And so in so many different ways, we kind of color it different ways and we talk about different things, but like all temptation, all sin, like, yes, they're going to have different consequences on earth and they're going to have different maybe effects. And maybe because of your history and your past, you're going to have specific kind of run-ins with things and struggle with things that other people won't and vice versa. But the same principles are in mind. Like in anything that I struggle with, do I trust that God can give me help?
That's a big one right
And
there.
do I trust that other people around me are going to give me help?
Right.
And like, I don't have to be worried, even though like we still have that dialogue in our brains. So like, man, do I really need to go tell him about this one too?
Right.
He already knows. Do I really have to bring this one up? But even just allowing ourselves to know and somewhat build the muscle in our mind and our heart that's like shame resistant. Like, nope. I know when I need help and I know when I'm beat and I need to get somebody else because I care more about the long run than this temporary shame, you know? But it's such an interesting thing when we like boil it down to the actual psychology of a lot of it. It's just, we get too embarrassed to own up to the mess that we've made. And a lot of times that reflects somewhat of what we think about God. We think that like, well, he couldn't accept me or he couldn't love me, or even now that I've accepted him and I've let it get to this point and all this, we just like expect him to be angry, but he never is, you know? But for you, you know, as you think about, because I think we talk about a lot about wanting to be more disciplined and wanting to be committed and consistent. I think we have, you know, probably brought it up a couple of times, just the idea of the only thing that really separates those people that we look at that as great people is that they were just consistent over a long period of time. What are the kind of things that you tell yourself now when it comes to things that, you know, whether it's keeping in shape, whether it's, you know, this podcast, all those kind of things, like how do you have to train your body, or what do you have to tell yourself? Like, no, we don't get to do this. We don't get to get ourselves off the hook. And here's why.
Before I answer that, before I lose this thought, I want to go
somewhere.
right off of what you were saying. If you think about it, it all goes right back to Genesis 1. No, the fall, not Genesis 1.
Yeah. 2.
Genesis 2. You think about, if you go back and read the 3. Genesis 3. Yes. The fall.
Yeah.
If you go back and look at the conversation after they eat of the fruit and they realize they're naked, what was the first thing God asked them? He said, hey, one, where are you?
Yeah.
The second one, who told you were naked?
Yeah.
It wasn't, why did you eat the apple? Or whatever fruit it was.
Yeah.
I can tell you what fruit it was. It wasn't a raisin. Okay, anyway.
Slander.
But I think in that simple conversation that really shows you the heart of God. It's like, hey, what you did, yes, you disobeyed me, but I care. I'm more upset that you didn't trust me to come to bring it to me.
Wow.
I always go back and think, what would the difference in that story would have made if they simply been like, God, we made a mistake.
Right.
Forgive us. I think the garden would still be here. And this earth, we probably wouldn't be doing this podcast. That was going to look way different than it would now.
Yeah.
And it shows his heart and his love and his genuineness for us. And he also shows that, yes, I am just, and your actions have consequences, and here are the consequences. I still love you through it. I'm still going to bless you through it, but these consequences have to come.
Yeah.
Either in this life or the next, right? And so I didn't want to lose that thought.
It's
I didn't want to lose that thought.
It's
But
really
and when it comes to being consistent and discipline and all those things, I know that it's been a major struggle in my life to really grasp hold of what it looks like for me to be consistent and disciplined. Like, I have this version of myself that I can see that is disciplined, that is consistent in all areas of my life, and what that can, and all the positives that come with that. But my reality is not that. And so once I had to humble myself and be like, okay, my reality is not like conducive with what I want to see in the future. It can be if I take care of the present,
right?
But I'm not taking care of the present, so therefore, I'm not gonna take care of the future, right? For example, you know, for a long time, I rejected the idea, like your room is a reflection of what your life is. I'm like, my first time I heard, I was like, that's not true.
That's stupid.
I was like, my life can be perfect on the outside. My room is just bad. Like, it's just your room.
Yeah.
About a month ago, I was like, God dang it, this is so true. Because every time I'm like in a really bad mental space, or I'm like beating myself up, or I'm wallowing in self-pity, right?
Yeah.
I take a look at my room, I'm like, man, this is filthy.
Yeah, direct reflection.
And so I want to paint this mental picture for y'all, okay? because I was actually gonna make an Instagram post and a video about this.
Okay.
So I wanna say it and see if you can get this mental picture. Okay, say you have a bed. In your bed, on one side of the bed is full of stuff, clothes, random stuff,
Clutter.
a whole bunch of clutter, right? And it's a straight line on one side of the bed, and right next to it is a spot where you sleep. Okay, that spot is clean, it's pristine. That's where you sleep. That's where your head. That's where you rest. So, what's the problem in that? Obviously, you look at it and be like, okay, the problem is there's clutter right next to me. But the true problem is you're not utilizing the whole bed. You're only utilizing part of the bed, right? You got the whole mattress to use the whole thing.
Yeah.
To sleep on the whole thing, to experience the whole thing, not just part of it. And so when you do that, you condition yourself to be like, okay, I can still have this little sliver of goodness in my life, and I'm okay with laying next to all this filth in my life. What you don't realize that filth starts to move over and creep and take up more and more space of the bed, and you have less space for what you have considered that you're actually comfortable. And when I looked at that, I was like, okay, God, you didn't have to yell at me like that, bro. But that was so profound to me. I was like, man, like that. I convinced myself that this is okay when in reality it's not. And so just something like I know that I have a tendency to want to, okay, when I'm feeling motivated, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that. I'm going to go for the big thing. I'm going to do 200 days of doing this or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I know for a fact that I used to look down on small beginnings. I just want to jump straight. I just want to leap as far as I can and see where I land. Yeah. Forget training.
Yep.
Give me that sword.
Today.
I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to start spraying and praying.
I'm like that.
I am not like that. I'm probably going to stab myself. I'm going to follow my own sword or something. I don't know. Trip over an invisible rock, right? The little thing that I started doing is simply making my bed every single day. Keep my bed clean. That's it.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm not even doing anything else. Right, that's the only thing that I'm focused on right now. In my mind, if I can keep my bed clean, free of clutter, then like you were saying, that should trickle into other areas of my life. And it was interesting. I not only noticed that with my bed, then I'm like, wait, this other area of my room has been a clutter spot that I just kind of overlooking because I can only focus on this.
Right.
Now I can see this. Now I can see this. And now I'm forced to deal with it because, okay, if this one area is going to be clean, guess what? Now all got to get clean. All of it's got to get clean.
Yeah.
And the beauty in that, it starts to compound. And eventually it'll get to a place where it's so automatic, I don't have to think about, I got to make my bed. I got to clean my tub. I got to vacuum the floor and all these different things. I got to organize my closet. All those different things are going to become automatic. And if I take that same mentality into any other area of my life, and I say I take it to my job, okay, I have a tendency to put off emails until I absolutely have to.
Yeah.
If I start dealing with the emails the day, like when I get them and doing all that, guess what? I have so much free time to either A, I can clock out early if you got that type of job, which is if you are, you blessed.
Yeah, shout out.
Or B, you got more time to actually focus on the work that you need to do that help you be successful and help you get, move your career forward. The advantages and the leg up that you get from doing those things, it's paramount. It's almost like a no-brainer.
Yeah, you're not always playing catch up.
But in our head, this is what I do. When I look at the problem, what I know I need to be disciplined and consistent in, I immediately get overwhelmed.
Yeah,
because I don't go from, okay, let me see what it'd be like to do one day of this. I automatically think of the maintenance would it be if I did this for 80 or 90 days. And then God rebuked me again. Constantly, he's like, hey, you don't know what success looks like. One, because you have not been successful in this area. Two, the maintenance of it is like, why are you scared of success when the maintenance is not really up to you? If I have called you to do something, trust that I'm going to get you through it. I get brought back to Joshua 1:9. He didn't tell him to be strong and courageous just because he knew. He was like, wait a second. My predecessor Moses just died. He was supposed to lead us to the promised land.
Right.
And now I got to deal with all these crazy
stubborn Israelites,
wishy-washy people. I got to get them across to the promised land. God, his million thoughts like, I'm not the guy. I'm not capable of this. But he kept saying, hey, be only strong and courageous. Like, stay in my word. Stay close to me and you will be there. It's the same thing. Principle applies to us. Right. And so it's not my job to be maintain. My job to be obedient. And so if I can just be obedient in that area, God will show me through it. He will see me through it. There's going to be dragons to slay. There's going to be giants to slay. And eventually, at the end of the day, I was like, man, I should have been done this. I should have. What took me so long? but it's my perspective. And so once I literally lower myself and get back into reality and say, hey, bro, you're actually not where you want to be.
Yeah, it's good.
And if you look at where you want to be and look at what your life is now, if you don't like where you are, you can change that.
Yeah.
It takes one decision. I like to say you're always one decision away from a completely different life. You can change that.
Yeah.
But if you're not willing to say, I am not okay, hey, I need help in this area, like we were talking about earlier with accountability, then I'm confident enough to say this. I don't mean to discourage you, but you're not going to get anywhere you want to be if you're not willing to actually like be honest and take a honest self-evaluation. Okay, I have a chronic gossiping problem, because we've been talking about big things like pornography and gossip, not gossip, pornography, like alcohol and drug abuse. All those things are real, but also what things are real: chronic liars, chronic gossipers, chronic lazy people, right? All these different things, like all that stuff is talked heavily against in the Bible. All of it's sin. In our humanness, we rank them, but in God's eyes, they're like, no, I need to get that out. Well, regardless of what your sin is, be honest with where you are, and God can work with that.
It's good.
And so that's my blueprint for me right now. That's all I'm doing is, hey, I want to start small and to see how that crescendos and builds on and snowballs later. So man.
Now I would take that analogy of being on a bed with all that clutter and take the spiritual aspect of it, and what it sounds like you're saying in a lot of ways too is that sometimes we only allow ourselves to have the bare minimum of what God wants us to have.
Yes.
And potentially, like, when the clutter, all the stuff we don't want to address, all of the work we don't want to do, and if we looked at that as like the sanctification process of becoming more like Jesus and putting to death some of these things in our life that ultimately are for our bad, like we want them out, even though there is a real human component to where I enjoy doing that, or this brings me pleasure, or whatever it is, they lead to death. But it's as if I let clutter overrun my bed. Or my relationship with God, in air quotes. And then I'm pissed in the morning that I didn't get rest because I was uncomfortable the whole night. And then you got people talking about, well, God didn't, and God wouldn't, and God didn't meet me here, and didn't, and He never did this for me, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, oh, no. You're not mad because the mattress was bad. You're mad because everything else getting on top of it stopped you from experiencing it.
Yeah.
And so when we have that ability, and honestly, the ball being in our court of saying, like, God's like, this is a Bible verse I quote a lot, but that God's eyes are always looking to and fro on the earth, looking to strengthen someone whose heart is perfect towards Him, right? Like, He's always looking for somebody to give more of Himself to. Yeah. And sometimes we paint Him as this distant and angry and all that kind of stuff. But what that tells me is I get to be as close to God as I want to be. And like, that's a weird sentence to come to terms with.
But it's true.
But it's like, no. God always wants to be closer to me. His end of the bargain is already held up. He makes Himself available. So how could I then get upset that I'm not experiencing the freedom, or I'm not experiencing the fullness of life that Jesus promises us, not in heaven, on earth, the fullness of life that he came to bring, and be upset that I haven't made space? That I wasn't able to just say, hey, I need to get rid of some of this stuff, right? And then let's not even jump into like how far that analogy can go.
Let's do it.
I mean, we talk about a lot of times that sometimes we paint this picture of Christianity in our mind as like, maybe you'll let God into a lot of the rooms of your house, but there's like a closet you won't let Him in. I think honestly, sometimes it's reversed. Like, I think sometimes you only let Him in one area and the whole rest of it. And then it's like, this is something that I get pretty fired up about, but obviously it's late, so maybe I won't. You can't get mad at God not coming through if you don't actually put all of your weight on Him. So it's one thing for me to be let down and be disappointed, right? If I actually give it my best effort and my best shot. But it's like, I think what we tend to do a lot, because we like our idols and we like the things that bring us comfort and pleasure, that we say, man, God never did for me what He promised to do for me. And it's because we didn't try God, we tried ourselves, and we called it God. Yeah. True freedom is in true submission. And so I think the invitation in an analogy or an idea like this is, hey, what are the things that you refuse to get out of the room? Mm-hmm. Like, what are the things that if somebody else who didn't have the attachment to him, right? This is why you watch these shows. And sometimes it's mesmerizing when you watch an episode of somebody who hoards something. Mm-hmm. That like I, as somebody who doesn't and live in that house and doesn't have the same connections to all those things, can walk in and be like, that's junk, that's junk, that's junk, that's bad for you. That's literally poisoning you and you need to get rid of all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And in some of those scenarios, it's like, oh yeah, there's a dead pet who has been buried now for years or months or whatever. And it started like, it's a health hazard to you. Somebody else comes in and immediately like, boop, 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 boop. You got to get rid of it all. Mm-hmm. And when it's us looking at our own stuff, we're like, well,
justification.
This has to stay here. I don't know who I am without this. Mm-hmm. Or I'm not ready to give this up yet. Or I will give this up soon enough. Like I can stop whenever I want. Or that's not even junk. It's not even bad for me. Which is back to the accountability piece. Like it's not just Jesus. Because the way he set it up is God and community. Mm-hmm. You need both. And so if I'm not willing to let you into the house.
Right.
And you to have access into all those areas, then I'm going to kid myself and I'm going to rob myself of the fullness of life when I could just have you come in who I know cares about me and I know wants best for me and say, that's got to go, that's bad for you, and that's, what were you thinking? Like, you know that's not good. Mm-hmm. And then to have the awareness and the humility to submit and be like, you're right. Mm-hmm. But on the edge of that, on the opposite side of that is life.
Yeah.
It's life.
And life abundantly.
That's it.
And now, let's paint another picture. Same analogy, right? Now you have your bed clean. You've laid on this one side of the bed for so long.
Yeah.
You're scared to venture to what the other side of the bed is.
Yeah.
You convince yourself, I can only sleep good here. I still find myself only sleeping on that one side of the bed. Like every now and then I'll like venture over to the other side and kind of like I'll try to like, all right, I'm gonna sleep on this side. It feels weird. I've been dead serious. It feels so weird to sleep on the other side of my bed because I'm just so conditioned to be in that one spot. And if you want to take it to a spiritual element, now that I have the freedom, I oftentimes constrict myself to a very small lane.
To what I already know.
Mm-hmm. But there's so much more that God's like, only if you just venture out and enjoy what I have laid before you.
Wow.
And that is how I see the freedom with parameters. Freedom with responsibility.
It's good.
Right? I think that's why Paul's like, hey, you get this freedom, but don't use it to sin.
That's right.
Because if I use the freedom that I now have in having a clean bed, which equals, we were saying that's our spiritual life, then guess what? Day after day, a piece of clutter, a piece of clutter, a piece of clutter. And I'm going to realize not only is it going to get back to where it was, but it's going to be worse. And it's going to be twice as hard for me to actually deal with it this time. But also, not only is it going to be hard for me to deal with that time, all the other areas that I realize I'm going to lose sight of, and they're going to get worse as well. And I'm not the only one that's going to see it. Other people are going to see it. Other people are going to feel it. But then again, that's going to hit on that pride, like, hey, humility, like, humble yourself. Like, look, you can turn back at any moment. You're not too far gone. You're not in too deep. You might feel like you're in too deep. You might feel like you have went too far. I wish I could remember that word. I learned it in business class. Like, the reason why people stay in investments for like a bad investment because like, I put so much time into it. I put so much effort into it. I might as well just
cost fallacy.
I think so.
Yeah.
I've done so much.
Yeah.
That don't apply spiritually.
Yeah.
Just because you've been a addict for 20 years, just because you've been a chronic anger chronic anger issues for 30, doesn't mean God can't restore that. Doesn't mean he can't change that in a twinkling of an eye with a snap of a finger or just a touch. That's what repentance is. I'm just simply turning around and looking at him.
Yeah.
Yes, will I have to learn how to navigate this new life, this new freedom? Absolutely, just like we all do. But there's so much beauty, there's so much peace, there's so much joy, and there's so much enjoyment in the big one, big F, fulfillment, that you did not have in that other area that you now have access to and you now will be living in. And dude, it's so crazy. Like, it's so crazy. And I can't wait to see how this trickles into other areas of my life, because how I see it is I get people that affirm me all the time without asking. It's like, hey man, you have so much in you and you're gonna do great things and all this stuff. But I'm like, if I can't, bro, you don't know what I'm living like. I can't even keep my bed clean. I can't. I'm not about to go out here and start this business and be successful. I'm not about to be a tennis director and grow this country. Like, how you expect me to coach these kids and take them to the next level when inside my personal life, I can't even keep my bed clean.
Right.
Like, come on now. But now that I'm just simply being obedient and taking care of my space, these words that are being spoken to me, I'm starting to believe them now. I'm actually being okay. Now I can actually, you know what? I accept that. I receive that. Instead of just, oh, thank you, bro. Like, I can actually receive that and want to do something with it because
got space for it.
There's space for it. Because guess what? It's not only I'm not beating myself up anymore. I got out of my own weight.
Yeah.
And for me, honestly, that took a lot for me.
Yeah, it's big.
To clean the bed. I'm not gonna lie, that took a lot for me because I was in such a laser focused.
Yeah.
What's the word? System.
Yep.
Of mess of funk that getting out of that was like, this is uncomfortable. I don't have peace here. I'm not okay with this.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I was not okay. I was not. Had no peace. And I was also uncomfortable, but I convinced myself that I was.
That's right.
And so that's like catch-22.
Yeah.
It goes all the way back to the beginning of our conversation. Am I going to trust God with this or not? That's why I saw freedom in pornography, because I didn't believe, for a long time, I didn't believe God, I could trust him with it. I didn't think he cared enough. But to say, you know what? I'm going to see what happens. God, even though I might not believe it now, I'm going to act like I do. I'm going to act like I believe this, and my actions going to follow this.
Fake it till you make it.
Boy, like, I don't say fake it till you make it all the time. Because sometimes that don't work.
Sometimes it's reckless.
We even talked about it. You fake it until you don't make it.
Yeah.
And you're like, who am I? I lost myself. Now you have an identity crisis, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm going to have faith in something that I don't know what's going to come up, I have to act like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's the nature of the game.
Yeah.
And he showed up like crazy. I'm just like, you crazy boy.
Yeah.
That's nuts. But yeah, man, I ain't got nothing else. That's just
No, it's really good, man.
It's beautiful, man. I really wish y'all can experience that. It's so beautiful. Clean your room.
Clean your room, man. Clean your room.
Your car.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it just does spill over into other areas of your life. You know, I think the last thought I have about it is man, don't kid yourself. It's something I have to remind myself a lot. Don't kid yourself that, like, when we talk about creating new habits, it's as if you don't already have habits.
Right.
Right? Because I think sometimes we talk about good habits and we're like, I need to implement this new thing I want to do without taking out the trash. Right? And so you have habits right now. The reason it's hard to start making your bed is because you have a habit of not making your bed.
Facts.
Right? So it's not just like, oh, well, I'm okay with it. It's like, no. For the past however many years, sometimes at this point, you have never made your bed. For me, I know especially, like, sometimes I'll get in like a rhythm where I start making a little bit more. But guess what? When I don't sleep well, or I'm up too late, or I get up late and all that kind of stuff, I don't have time to do those things. And then everything else feels like it. And you know what I do? I go to work and I'm like, I need to pick me up. Let me go get some bad food for me and some, whatever to keep me going. Right? Like, and now my day is just trying to stay on track. And it's an upward hill fight the whole time. But you already have habits. So you have to have the awareness piece, the humility, maybe even to go ask other people, hey, what are some of those habits that you see? Like, how do I respond to criticism? How do I respond to compliments? How do I respond to any of those kinds of things? And trying to get some insight and then recognizing, hey, God, because honestly, a lot of what you're saying when you talk about having people, speak life into you and not having space for it, it's like you're saying God is doing his part, sending me the encouragement that I need, but I haven't been doing my part to actually be able to receive it. And so in a lot of ways, what we're saying is, hey, God's going to handle his business.
Right.
Don't you worry about him. You need to handle yours though. Right. You have to be willing and able to receive what God is doing. And sometimes that looks like making your bed. Sometimes that looks like going to sleep at a good time. Because I guess what? You go to sleep at a good time. You wake up with enough time to make your bed. You wake up with enough time to maybe get your shower in, go brush your teeth, have breakfast, all those kinds of things. Nah, sometimes when you're just rolling out the bed last minute, getting every ounce of sleep you can get because you're not disciplined. or just because that's the habit you've made.
Yeah.
You just don't realize, dude, big ships make turns slowly.
The big ship is controlled by a little rudder.
Little rudder, bro.
Tiny little rudder. You break
Just
the rudder, the ship can't move.
You're going far different places. But man, I think it's great. I think that's great. And really what feels massive, because it does feel overwhelming a lot of times. It really does. You know, that's not us just being like, oh, they're just saying like we know what it feels like to want so badly to do or be something, and then to like not want to do any of the small steps that you have to do to get there. That's so the encouragement, I think, is, man, just pick one thing. If it is making your bed, if that's the easy one, do that. But like, pick one thing to start being consistent at, because I'm telling you, it's almost like after you prove to yourself you can, you start aiming higher, you start doing more, you start having those kinds of things. And I'm telling you, what became, like you're saying, what started out as making your bed now is I'm a completely different person, you know? But that's because God's faithful to do his part. Now I'm just making sure I show up when he moves, you know? It's good. I mean, I think that's it from us.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
That's it. So we love you guys, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you for tuning in. As always, man, share this episode with somebody you know needs to hear it.
Please.
You know, like what we do and why we do it is because we think that God is going to use it, you know, and it's just like we're being obedient in this small thing as it starts, man. I pray you'd be obedient in the small things going on in your life.
Message.
But this has been Lessons and Blessings.
Hey, this is Shell.
This is AJ.
Love y'all. Peace.
Peace.